All right, we're ready to show off the second GM kit. I know the first one was a long time ago. I was hoping to get more of these made, but it takes a little while to write them, and I always try for a few weeks after writing one to actually get a playtest group to try it out. I wasn't able to. I think it's been like a month and a half trying to find people to play FATE Tachyon Squadron, but unable to find it. So I'm now ready to just show off the PDF and post it online, see if maybe we can get more people interested. And maybe someone who already has an existing group and needed a one shot, or someone who wants to learn how to play Fate can pick this up. It's got links to the FATE SRD and the other important documents available. So we'll go ahead, start going into the PDF now and what's in there, and explaining a little bit about the format in case you want to, listen to that. But again, this is for the GM walking through how to use this PDF. So if you're just someone who wants to play it, I would stop the video here, find whoever your GM is, and send them this link to the PDF or here. Now let me see if I can do this. So here now is the PDF, clickable links. It's about as fancy as I'm going to get for a while. If you saw the previous GM kit, same sort of setup. You've got a brief intro into how to GM, some general hints, a little bit about the Fate system, and links to the online SRD for Fate. Then we're going to talk a little bit about how to run the adventure, general notes on the formatting and the pace. The game creation worksheet we'll go over in more detail, but that's something particular to Fate. This is a little bit less detailed because it's intended for a one shot, as opposed to most of these Fate campaign sheets that I saw. I guess game creation worksheets are for larger campaigns, so a little less detailed, but still serves the purpose. The next bit from 4 to 9B is the actual adventure. We'll get into that. 10 and 11 are things that are probably fairly safe to share with the players, because it's the pre-generated characters, as well as, the lion's eye, which is your capital ship, the various vessels that your characters will be flying. So first, what is FATE Tachyon Squadron? FATE is a system. I don't know what the acronym stands for. Probably should have looked that up. But Tachyon Squadron is an attempt to create an RPG setting that is any kind of space fighter pilot squadron setting. I'm shooting for something, I don't want to call it a space opera because it's way too short, but more in the lines of that, heavily influenced by things like Wing Commander, and if I were to write a full campaign, probably some sort of Wing Commander, Robotech, hybrid sort of influences, but that's what Tachyon Squad is meant for. So let's go ahead, click on the first one, and we're just going to scroll through this. We'll skip a lot of the 4 through 9B because that's, again, just the actual adventure, but we'll walk you through this first stuff. If you've seen the previous GM kit, you remember this. So you want to GM. It's basically for people who've never run a game before. These are the things I've learned over like 25 years or so of running games. These are the things that I feel are, if you've never done it before, here's what I think will help you. Then quick notes for running FATE Tachyon Squadron. Because I don't want to steal the entire FATE SRD and stick it in here, primarily gave you the things you need to know about the FATE system. Their SRD is really well done, so I didn't need to do a whole lot. The core to FATE, besides that it's a much more cooperative in the storytelling aspect compared to something like D&D, where here there's actually a lot of mechanics about how the players not just mechanically resolve something, but narratively resolve something. So you go to the FATE SRD, and they'll explain all these convenient clicks. Unfortunately, if you want to play Tachyon Squadron, all of the more specific stuff I couldn't find on the SRD, probably because it's in the book. So I think this link will take you straight to where you can buy the Tachyon Squadron book for more details. And then with all of our GM kits, there's also a paragraph that explains how this system differs from other ones. So Fate's definitely more for, you'll want a group of players who are more outgoing, more narratively engaged, and are willing to fail forwards, as well as, tell stories that go beyond this, which is why, as the GM, you'll notice that this isn't too narratively focused as we go forward. The second section is about running the adventure, tells you a little bit of what you'll need, and then aspects and roles are things that are unique to they're not unique to, but the terminology is unique to how Fate uses it. And again, I don't want to go too much into Fate, but aspects are an important part of anything in Fate. They basically give you something about it that lets you move the narrative forward or influences how characters can interact with that narrative. So what makes Fate different? When I say it's less focused on mechanics, I'm not saying there aren't mechanics there, because there's actually quite a few, but I mean, it's less like a D&D or a GURPS, where the mechanics are much stronger influences in how the game progresses. And then we give you a quick layout, which reveals some basic things to help new DMs. One of the things that I've tried to put in there are something unique to Fate called compels, which these compels are keyed to the individual pre-generated characters, just to help DMs not flounder when they go into a new scene to figure out, okay, how do I use compels and how do I try and, draw each individual character into the scenario. And then conflicts and engagements are kinds of encounters for Fate, and so relevant zones are specifically dealing with them. The game creation worksheet, this takes everything that Fate says should be on there and gives you the stuff that already exists for this one shot. If you want to turn this one shot into a bigger campaign, you can look up in the FATE SRD how to make one of these creation worksheets and expand on this. But you see, I actually really like this idea, and I might crib it for non-Fate things. The game name, the setting scale helps, again, focus in, like, what is this game going to be about? In this case, it's about intergenerational spaceships going on an exploration mission. Current issues. This is super helpful for a one-shot. What is the first thing that the players are dealing with? Then the impending issues. What's going on? And in this specific story, what's going on is that our players are aboard the ship the Lion's Eye, which has been damaged after first contact and is unable to engage jump drives, and is therefore going to be the last defense while the rest of the ships jump to safety. And that is the plot, right? It's a nice kind of heroic last stand, and I think perfectly suited for a one-shot, right? Because either way, this is it. The story closes off and is done, right? The Lion's Eye is doomed either way. It's just a matter of how cool is that last stand. Faces or NPCs. The three major NPCs that we'll meet are here. We've got the Admiral, who's related to one of the pre-generated characters, and then the two other fighter wings have their captains. The major places, we've got the Lion's Eye, which is here, the ship, then two areas on the ship where most of the adventure is going to occur are listed out here. The rest of the adventure we're going to fly through. We'll look a little closely at the first one just to give you an idea of a breakdown. So the first part of the adventure is getting the players out to deck 115, which is sustained the most damage, to determine how to resolve the current crisis there. So compels, we talked a little bit about before. Here's how you'll see it laid out. You basically lay out to the players, hey, do you want to use your fate points to influence the story in this way? Real compels, if you were to go by the Fate book, are a little less structured, more loosey-goosey, but this is a one-shot written for a new DM, so hey, whose fault is it that the lion's eye suffered damage? Hey, you could spend a fate point to say it wasn't us, it was someone else. And then, would someone here like to already know some people on deck 115 or have a contact with the intelligence services? Or would you like to be friends with either of the other fighter wing captains? And then, would you like to spend a fate point to have a connection to deck 115 who's not any of those other things we just talked about? That's an example of these loosey-goosey compels that you're going to see here. Each section then has a setup, which is for the DM to read it like it's block text. There's some areas where we've got some nice brackets here to help you, like, hey, you're reading through. Remember, some things may have changed because of the previous compels. Specifically, one of the NPCs, this is who they are if no one says, hey, I know a person there. Otherwise, remember that the players have already changed the game on you and they have a contact there. These here, once you're done reading this, you've got these wonderful, simple rolls that are called overcome rolls. Think of them like a skill check from D&D. Just, hey, this is what you know. Nice, easy, direct. Then once there, we have the section called action, which is, again, here's where the players really have some influence. Role-playing occurs. Some things that they might try and do are already figured in here. Do relevant aspects, things that they should learn. Here, aspects in Fate can be anything. So it's good to be able to just have a rule tag that we can use to help give players information, objectives, define things that falls within the realm that you can play with as a player, because they can use aspects to do things, essentially, to exploit them, to interact with them. So I really like the idea of aspects, and I think Fate works really well in blending all this information into one thing. When you read about Fate, if you don't know it, Fate fractals are essentially not actual characters, but things that have aspects. We have our resolution, which is, okay, you've role-played the scenario, you've learned everything you need to learn. How do you as the GM decide, all right, let's resolve this and move on? And then you'll see the next section. We've gotten through the first part of the adventure. We're on to the next. Here we have more specific compels that are keyed to individual characters' aspects. If you're letting players make their own characters, you may want to read through the adventure at first, find these spots where I've keyed the GM, hey, here's a good spot for a compel, and figure out one for your individual characters, because these are the narrative beats that will make each playthrough significantly different. We'll scroll on through for the rest. Let's actually use the quicker scroll here. As the GM, the next big break happens here in Chapter 7, where the players are going to have to decide whether they want to join a rebellion, or a mutiny, I guess is a more genre-appropriate term, where the mutineers are attempting to seize some transport ships to go and board one of the other ships with a working jump drive to escape, as opposed to remain on the Lion's Eye. Or if you want to be the proper, I don't want to call it the proper thing, but if you want to remain aboard the Lion's Eye, stop the mutiny and act as that last line of defense. Either way, you have your first conflict here. That's an actual engagement. It gives you the basic rules, basic stats you need for everyone who's involved in this little shootout aboard the ship. And then that determines how you resolve it, with the basic same step no matter what the players decided to, give you your lead into the finales. whether you are part of the mutiny or not. Either way, whether you are part of the mutiny or not, the finale takes and does the thing that everyone's been waiting for if you were playing Tachyon Squadron, which is the final space engagement. So it gives you all of the stats all of the different ships will have, their specific gear and aspect, and then the party's objectives and how it resolves if they're successful. One, the party is escorting your shuttlecraft to board another ship, and then you have to escape. And then there's the other one where you are protecting the Lion's Eye and the bombers until they destroy the jump gate so that the aliens can't follow you. Overall, it's a pretty straightforward adventure. Nothing too exciting going on here. Your appendix of pre-generated characters, if you have people who don't want to make them. We'll talk a little bit about how you make characters in Fate. You have these 5 aspects. This is maybe not perfectly Tachyon Squadron or perfectly Fate for these pre-generated characters, just because we wanted to be able to use them. You have your 3 original aspects, right? Where it's your high concept. Who is this character? What do they do? The trouble. What is the negative thing about this character? What's holding them back? What are their challenges? An origin adventure. What is it that they've learned or should be doing from their first adventure? And then the coolest part of the Fate creation process, players exchange their character sheets with each other and create some connection between their character and this new character, which yields two more aspects as you trade it with 2 different characters. So every pre-generated character will be different, mattering on your table, who the other characters are there, and how they do this when they trade. So Fate is really neat like this. In addition, you've got additional +1s to skills, which for each character, I've filled out their good skills and at least 1 bad skill, which they're just bad at. So again, each character is going to be different as each player decides, where do we put our 4 +1s? They've got a built-in stress chart, which is think of it like your hit points chart, essentially. So this will all make a little more sense after you read a bit about Fate and how everything works, including what are stunts and all of that. Let's scroll down to the ships because there's no need to scroll through all of the characters. Lion's Eye fighter ships. The fighter ships, they give you the damage chart, which won't make much sense until you read the Tachyon Squad book, but it's there along with your shield strength and your standard features, your equipment bay, all of that. Most of this won't make any sense until you have looked at the Tachyon Squadron book, but these different ships here will give your players a chance to sort of choose what feature they want their pilot to use. Most of the pilots do have, let's find a random character. It tells you what ship is best for them to pilot, but again, players do weird things, so they may decide that this guy should fly something else instead of what we're listing there. And that is, in a nutshell, the Fate Tachyon Squadron GM kit. The download will be in the link below. It's a single PDF. I felt that was a lot easier to do than what I did with the GM kit for D&D, which had a bunch of separate PDFs. I think this is a cleaner look, but we'll see. Anyway, thank you for listening, and if you do play, let me know. A, if it works well. B, if I misunderstood anything about Fate and broke something in how the rules are written up, or just see if it's all perfect and you love it. So, thank you again.